I'm your host, FatDag. You're listening to Wise Advice. My weight loss journey failed when I focused on how. It wasn't until I switched my focus to why that I truly transformed myself. Join the show on the web at FatDag.com. Follow along on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, all at Wise Advice. Send in your comments, your questions, your celebrations. I'll include them as part of the show. But before we dive in, remember, when you're out of points, stop eating points. Hey, I'm honored to be your wingman as we walk through this journey together because I believe in you. Well, hello there. Welcome to episode 294 of Wise Advice. We're going to call this one Changes. And so stick around to find out what that means. But I want to thank you all for being here. We got a great live audience today. Looks like a little over 100 people, which just blows my mind that you guys are tuning in. So thank you for being a part of the journey. For those of you listening, Janine is a little bit on a hiatus right now until we get back into the studio. The technical aspect of bringing her into the show while I'm still running everything at the same time, way too difficult, but she will be back. She added so much to the show, so shout out to her. She's out with the dog right now walking, so that's kind of very cool. But I just want to really kind of reemphasize, again, it's so awesome to see all of you. And so a lot of you have popped into my workshops or you popped in on my social media feed or whatever, and you really, I can tell you're staying engaged. And I got to tell you, that's the most powerful thing that you can do for yourself is truly staying engaged with the community that takes you where you want to go. And this community is doing that. So truly the fact that you're able to continue to be here, checking in, being a part of this, that tells me a lot about what you're doing and how you are mentally. Even if you're thinking, oh, I'm not sure, the fact that you've checked in tells me a lot more is going right than you may or may not give yourself credit for. So truly, I just want to always say, big thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of the journey. If you haven't already, certainly find me on Facebook, find me on Instagram and YouTube. Give a thumbs up and a like to all those places out there. I know it takes an extra step for you to do that, but it's really fun to kind of engage with you on so many different platforms. I'm always available via text. I've said that more than once. If you go to fatdag.com at the very top of the page, my phone number is listed right there. Text me. It comes right into my phone, obviously, and we can interact that way and see how you're doing. I want to be here for you during this crazy time for sure. Last but not least, share an email on air at fatdag.com. And so we talked about before the frequency of the podcast, and really because the show is 100% user content driven, the more email I get, the more opportunity we have to do a show. So on air at fatdag.com is where you send that in. And truly, one of the things that does is it's very therapeutic to just kind of write it in and just get it off your chest. And so it just feels really good just to kind of let it all out. If you need to and or want to, you can send it anonymously, right? Or, you could say keep it anonymous, and we will certainly preserve that. I'm not going to blast you out to the entire world if you don't want to be blasted out to the entire world. But sort of keep up all that amazing stuff. I get asked from time to time where I do my workshops. As you guys know, I'm a coach here in Indianapolis, but Sunday nights, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Wednesday morning, Thursday night, we do, a workshop. So definitely thanks for checking in for those of you who've done that. But again, this episode comes to you commercial free. Because of the situation we're in, I go ahead and just really thank the Patreon community for stepping up. We've had an awful lot of fun. We actually did a Patreon party, a BYOB patron party, where if you're a member of the Patreon community, on Friday nights for the rest of the month of April, we're checking in via Zoom, and we're just really hanging out and having a blast. I think last week, I'm going to say about 30 or so people. I can't remember the exact number, but so many people joined, and we just hung out for a couple hours just chit-chatting. It was kind of like being at a workshop, but even more fun because there was no agenda, no rules, and we just kind of hung out. So if that's of interest to you, fatdag.com, click on the Become a Patron link to learn more and how to find that access code and link inside there. So again, to the Patreon community, thank you for being a part of this. The first email from this show comes in out of Stamford, Connecticut. It comes in from Liz. She says, "Dear Mike, hey, I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk about my journey. I first want to thank you for your service and for all the support and inspiration that you give to the WW community. Your dedication, your openness, and clarity are incredibly important to so many. As far as my weight journey, though, I was an active, slim child who grew up in a household with mixed messages. One of my siblings was a super picky eater, and the other one would overeat. These messages and how my parents handled them did not seem to affect me much growing up, but they became more evident as I grew older and struggled with my weight. As a teen, I was very comfortable with my body and attracted a lot of attention, and this led to both pride and self-consciousness. In school, I struggled with healthy, regular eating, and my idea of losing weight was, instead of having full meals, was having a couple of pastries and some other food throughout the day. I would right size within a few days, and I didn't really sweat it. After moving, though, I gained a little bit, but I quickly lost it before my wedding. I gained before my first pregnancy, and then the jaws unhinged. I ate for two, but instead of a baby, I was eating for two truckers. Healthy, but pretty big portions. After a while and nursing, I gained even more weight. A couple of years later, with running and eating better, I got back to the ballpark, but never really felt that I was fully where I wanted to be. Here comes the second baby. I had to be extra careful because of pregnancy, diabetes, and I was perfectly watching my meals. I was really proud about how I managed because the stakes were so high. I nursed too for a little while, and I gained. I eventually tried. I moved and more. I did move more, and I did shakes. Atkins would do well when I was following, and not so well otherwise. I eventually found WW, and I did well online, and found my way into a meeting. With a charismatic leader, I was inspired. I worked hard. I made lifetime. After that leader left, I eventually felt less inspired, and I took it as an excuse to slack off and eventually leave. As you've mentioned so many times, quitting only gets you a new start date. And I eventually restarted. I had a big event, and 2.5 years ago, I got back to the higher end of my range, but that was at the goal weight. And over the past 2 years, I let my weight creep up, and now I'm heavier than I've ever been, and I'm yo-yoing. I had a lot of work and life stress over the last couple years. I started a new job. I lost my best friend to cancer and a close family friend's daughter to experimenting with a tainted drug. I have a son who struggled with bullying and is still trying to manage his feelings. I have a daughter who struggled in college and will need to take time off from school. I lost my mother under very difficult circumstances in October, and my brother due to a very aggressive cancer in December. Life happens, and I'm dealing with grief, loss, and as well as practical things that have fallen by the wayside. I'm trying to keep my mental game, stay positive, keep my whys close by. I come to meetings regularly, and I have bits and pieces of things that work out. I know I have the knowledge, the resources, and the reasons, and all the inspiration, but I'm still struggling. Last week, I was so focused, but it took so much energy. I had a great week, though. This week, I dialed it back. I made choices that were not the best. I tracked only part of the way. In other words, like I said, I dialed it back. I am really struggling with motivation, consistency, and the emotional pain and shame that I feel when I look in the mirror. I know that I can do better. I will be having even more of my life on my plate soon, and I need to make sure my real plate has less piled on it. Since I'm going off of the food references, I also need to keep my cup half full. I think one of my outlets is music. While involved in live music, there's often drinks and food involved, and I would like to find a way to partake in moderation since it's such a fun and enriching part of my life. I want to keep on indulging, but not to overindulge. Mike, again, thank you for allowing me to vent, for helping me stay accountable, for providing me with support and inspiration. So I'm reaching out to get a kick in the pants and/or a helping hand to help me dial it in. Thank you for all that you do, sharing yourself so freely. You are an inspiration. Regards, Liz. Liz, you got a lot going on here, and I'm proud of you for writing in. And I want to go kind of randomly throughout your email, but when you closed your email saying I'm reaching out for a kick in the pants, I think you've been kicked enough. I don't think that me sitting here telling you, and being all authoritative and or military instructor on you is what you need right now. I think you need a big old hug. And I think so many of us need a hug. And so, as I'm recording this, many of us are in self isolation. So that hug thing really is something we value. So I'm not going to reach out and give you a kick in the pants. I'm going to give you a virtual hug and tell you that, hey, I'm proud of you. And so with all that's going on in your life, you took a time to kind of write this out and vent. And I think that's one of the most powerful things that we do is that we just got to get it off our chest. And so even if you just write it down and never do anything with it, you at least make that connection to kind of get it out of there. So I'm proud of you for taking the time, which is the first step you can do, is always put yourself first. And by you drafting this, you've told me that you have made yourself a priority. So big hug and congrats to you for that. Now, certainly, grief is a very real thing. The list of things that you listed, very tragic. And so my heart breaks for you as you navigate those. And so as we sit here and looking back, we go, okay, that has all happened. And so we're moving forward. And one of my favorite quotes is, I'm going to butcher it, but along the lines of you've lived through 100% of your hardest days. So from this point forward, we're like, okay, I have the strength now to make it through some tough stuff because I've proven the hard things that I've gone through, I can get through. When I asked the 5 questions as to, to how to develop your why, I asked that one intentionally. What's the hardest thing you've ever had to do in your life? And when you talk about those paragraphs, those are very hard things to do. The reason I ask you that question is because I want to prove to you that you're strong, and I want to prove to you that you're a fighter, and I want to prove to you that you can do hard things and get through them. And if you're able to write about it, then you've made it through the other side of the most difficult things you've ever had to do. So now we just go, okay, I have some internal strength I can draw on. And that's where we want to take this journey. So again, my heart breaks for you for all the stuff that you've gone through, but I also know that you're capable of picking yourself up, moving on. Moving on is not the right word. I apologize for saying that, but really picking yourself up and moving forward, right? Because nothing ever erases the past. The past is always a part of us. We just now have to figure out how do we take our future and blend the two things together and make it happen. I love how you kind of annotated that, you did Atkins before, it worked. You did some other stuff, it worked. And then you found WW and it worked. And I say this all the time. Like, I'm a big fan of WW. I'm a huge fan of WW. I certainly am a coach. But I also know that every single program out there works. It doesn't matter if it's Nutrisystem, Jenny Craig, Paleo, Keto, whatever. They all work because you work them. You find some intense motivation and you find some strength to go, I am doing this no matter what. And it doesn't really matter what the program is. So every single program out there works. The trick is to find the one that as grief comes along, as quarantine comes along, as social engagements come along, finding the program that works with all of life's different challenges. That's where the key is. And that's why I believe WW's got it going on, because you can work that throughout every single stage of your life. Others may be a little more difficult, but I just want to emphasize that every single program out there works. And so if you think about that for a second, the common denominator is you. The common denominator is you saying, okay, I am going to do this. Very, very powerful when you finally commit and say, I'm going to do this. And it's going to look different for every single one of us. It's going to look different depending on where we are in our stage of our journey, in the stages of our life. But the fact that you can make a small incremental change in the right direction is all we're really asking you to do. I want to address the point where you talk about, you found a great leader, and then when the leader left, you kind of just, you left with that group as well. I think that's very common. And as a coach, I can tell you, there's times when maybe I'm not ready to go to a workshop. I'll be brutally honest, right? There's times where I'm like, but I know that in my own head, I'm like, what's going to happen to so-and-so if I suddenly don't show up? And so I can tell you the leader side of it versus the attendee side of it, it's the same for both of us. We feed off each other. But what I want you to do is I want you to understand and know that even with the bestest of leaders, right? Even with the most amazing, charismatic people in your journey, you're still capable of doing the work. You still did the work. All the leader can do is just kind of work with you and coach you and give you some tips. And that's 30 minutes a week. The rest of the week is all you. The rest of the week, you're making the choices based on what someone said, but you have to put in the hard work. And so you clearly did that. Clearly. So it doesn't matter if the leader disappears and all of a sudden you have a new leader. You've proven to yourself you can do hard things. You've proven to yourself that you can get to goal in lifetime. You've done all that. And so now it's a matter of digging back in and go, okay, how do I now take all the knowledge I had, take my new lifestyle that's now coming at me a million miles an hour? How do I balance all that to make the best version of me that's truly sustainable, livable, and enjoyable? That's what you're after. Keeping your cup half full certainly is a recipe to doing that. Balancing it all is the piece that I would say is find a way to celebrate all the things you're doing right. Take time to write down the things that are going right in your life and the things that you're doing well. And the more of those you collect and write down, the better and happier you're going to feel. And it's just going to be rewarding beyond measure. So, Liz, thanks for writing in. Thanks for sharing your journey. Thanks for venting with hundreds of thousands of us as we listen to the show together. So keep up the amazing work. I'm proud of you. Really, really am. Next email comes in out of Denver, Colorado. Christina writes in. She says, "Hey, dear FatDag, let me start this letter by saying I have no problem losing weight. I'm rather good at it, actually. In my adult life, I set out to lose weight 3 times, and I've rocked it every single time. The first time, about 10 years ago, I had a 2-year-old and a baby, and I was the biggest I'd ever been at almost 200 pounds. I got motivated. I started going to the gym 5 days a week, 2 hours a day, taking advantage of the daycare at the gym. I started tracking every bite I ate with a calorie tracker app, and I aimed to eat no more than 1,600 calories a day. I dropped 75 pounds in 6 months. I loved the way I looked, and I loved the way I felt, but I had all these people in my life telling me I was too skinny, that I looked sick, that I needed to stop. I kept the weight off for a few years, but gradually started going to the gym less and less and tracking calories less and less. And I went back to work after staying home with the kids for several years. Fast forward about 5 years, and I had gained almost all of it back. I told myself I didn't care, and I didn't matter what I looked like. I just really wanted to be happy, but you know what? I wasn't happy. Well, not really. The cookie tasted good in the moment, but it didn't really make me happy. So, after getting almost all the way back to where I'd started the first time, a friend and I decided to do the whole 30 together. And you know what? I rocked that one too. I lost 35 pounds in 2 months. I wasn't back down to where people were telling me I looked unhealthy, but I fit back into the clothes and I was happy with, and I felt really good. That was a little over a year ago. I loved it, but once I started eating off plan again, the weight came back pretty quickly. It wasn't a good way to be able to maintain a weight loss. Once again, I went back to just wanting to eat that cookie and be happy with myself in the moment, but once again, I wasn't truly happy. Well, that brings us to now. For the 3rd time, I got to the point where I just really didn't like the way I looked or felt, and I decided to try WW. I was inspired by my brother, who at this point has lost 50 pounds on WW since he started in the fall, and I'm so proud of him. Let me tell you, when I find my motivation, I have it in spades. I'm totally 100% committed. I'm a beast. I joined WW on January 6th, and I'm on the blue plan now. I'm officially down 19 pounds this morning. It may sound a little boastful here, but I'm rocking it. I want to get down to 145 pounds, which is about 10 more than I was when everyone told me that I had lost too much. So I have about 15 pounds to goal. I know I can do it. I will do it. It's the after goal that scares me. How do I maintain? How do I keep the motivation when there's no goal in sight? Because I think that's really what motivates me is the goal. Getting to the end zone. Once I'm there, that's where I mess up. Anyway, sorry for the long, braggy email. I hope I don't sound too full of myself. I'm so glad I found your podcast. It's so motivating and helpful. Thanks for all you do and for your service, Christina. Christina, here's something fun. I remember a post I made, a couple years ago. I put a post on Connect, and I said something very similar to what you kind of articulated here. As I said I was happy, and I said I was proud of myself, and I said I was rocking it, all that good stuff. And someone kind of gave me the same thing and said, "Boy, you're awful braggy, you're awful boastful." And initially, I'll be honest, it stung a second, but the more I realize it and look back, that's what makes this journey doable. If you're not bragging, you're missing out. you've got to be your biggest cheerleader, because I tell you, other than a handful of people who watch you and clap alongside your way, there is no cheering squad for this. And so you have to internally be very happy with what you're doing, with the work that you're putting in, because let's be honest, this is not easy. Totally doable, not easy. So if you're able to stick with it and completely modify your life and really change it, you should be damn proud of yourself, and you better write in and brag. That's what's going to keep you happy. So, I love it, Christina. Thanks for sharing it, because it tells me everything I need to know about you and on this journey is that you're in. You're locked in. We addressed this in the first comment or the first email of the show. We talked about every single program works. And so the bottom line, the secret to success is you. You are the secret sauce. Think about that for a second. If every program that you've tried works, and it doesn't matter which program it is, and you're able to be a person who can lose weight, now we got to switch to, okay, what do I need in order to maintain? You've clearly demonstrated you know how to do this, right? So that part isn't the issue. The question that comes into play is, okay, how do I maintain it? And so you're so goal-oriented that you now say, okay, how do I maintain this? Well, I tell you, the answer is, excuse me, the answer is, I'll edit that part out. The answer is that you say to yourself, okay, what goal can I set? What can I do to make sure that I'm really, really, really diving in here? And you get to the point where you say, okay, I want to set a goal that maybe the goal isn't weight loss. Maybe the goal is activity. Maybe the goal is, an event, right? Or maybe not an event, but something that you do where you say it's a habit goal. That's what I want to get at. And so you're walking in this path, and you go, okay, if I set goals for myself and leave the scale out of it, then you can continue to modify those goals, and you can amp those goals up as you get closer. And therefore, they don't ever really go away. A lot of us love chasing the scale number, and then you're right. When we get to the final number on the scale, we're like, now what? And so really what the answer to do is say, okay, what can I do that isn't going to be at zero at some point? You can incrementally increase your activity. You can always track what you eat. You can always be eating healthier. You can add fruit. There are things that you can do habitually that will reward you and give you success long after you've hit a goal in a lifetime's range. So that's what I want you to focus on. I want you to kind of switch those gears into the point where you say, okay, what is the true goal? I asked you this many times. The true goal here is to live happily ever after. The true goal here isn't to say, I want to live at this weight for the rest of my life. That's never really been the goal. The goal is to say, I want to truly be happy. And that true definition of I'm happy, I feel good, I look good, because I'm taking the steps consistently, deliberately to get to myself to that point where I actually, the habits are making me happy. Because I love what I do and I love how I feel. And so that's where we want to get you to. And I ask the question often, think about if this journey, if for some reason your scale completely broke and there was no scale access at all in the world, how would you know you were successful? Well, however you answer that question is the things I want you to track and measure so that you can always determine if you're being successful or not, regardless of what the scale says. One of my favorite conversations a year ago, I was asking a person, and she said something to the effect of she wanted to weigh 129 pounds. I said, well, why did you want to get to 129 pounds? And she said, well, that's just the number I have in my head. It's just where I want to be. And I said, well, if I could guarantee you I can get you to 130, would you take it? And she goes, well, yeah, I'd take it. And I said, well, what if it was 131? Is that okay? Well, yeah. And so the number doesn't matter as much as the feeling really matters. And that feeling is given to you by the healthy habits that you do every single day that build you into who you are. So Christina, thanks for your note. Thanks for your email. Keep up the amazing work, and we will rock this thing together. At Arlington, Texas, Audrey writes in, she says, hey, dear FatDag, your podcast, episode 285, was very helpful. You ask, what is it that we're celebrating? Well, I'm celebrating not quitting. I'm a lifetime member who's had a wonderful year of celebrations and changes. I reached lifetime in December of 2018, and I've been barely clinging to it ever since. At the time, I was helping my daughter plan her wedding and a college graduation. She had a beautiful May wedding, and I was only a couple pounds over goal, which I was pretty proud of. What I wasn't prepared for was the immediate silence when she moved out. She'd been away for college for 5 years, so I didn't think it would be noticeable, but it was. There was a void the size of my daughter. My daughter is a first year music teacher, and I'm fortunate that she lives 30 minutes away and we see her every week. We are very close, and we both miss the downtime of the slow Saturday mornings and the late night talks. I found myself struggling and sad. I couldn't get back on track. I maintained my weight, but I couldn't get back into tracking or losing that last 10 pounds for my personal goal weight. Then my team at school completely changed, and I was given two first-year teachers, ironically, the age of my daughter, to train. My school life was a whirlwind. The stress was enormous. Fortunately, the new teachers have been wonderful, and I've enjoyed teaching teachers. Again, I maintained a few pounds would creep up, but I would get them back down. I was still not tracking consistently. I had my physical and all of my numbers were normal, which was really amazing considering my family history and a 50-year-old self. I was affirmed that what I'd done with WW and my food and my movement choices really had helped my health. Then the new program rolled out. I was excited. I tried the green program, but still not tracking consistently. I then decided to start going to yoga every Sunday at the gym. I figured I would just commit to one thing. That helped a lot. Then I switched to the purple plan, so that seemed to be a better fit. I started doing yoga at home too. I also started tracking more. I'm not perfect, but I am not giving up. My son graduates from college in May, and I need to prepare myself for his departure as he plans to stay in the Houston area. It's about 4 hours away. I'm used to him coming home for the summer and having meaningful talks and activities together. This is the end of a wonderful stage in our lives and beginning of a new one. We are incredibly proud of our kids, and we've really enjoyed our family life. My husband and I just celebrated our 30th anniversary in December, and we are still incredibly happy together. We have a lot to be thankful for, and I'm grateful every day for what we have. I just need to work through the feelings of these changes in a healthy way. Prayer, journaling, and yoga have helped me do all that. Food in appropriate portions is not going to help me handle my kids growing up and moving out. You are right about always having to manage this. I chose to submit to this process for my own well-being, and sometimes I have to remind myself of this even when I don't want to hear it. Changes, even positive ones, still leave us with emotions that require care and attention. I'm learning to manage them without using food. I am 4 pounds over my goal, but I think I'm making the right choices to get that under control now. Thanks for your constant encouragement. God bless you in your journey. Sincerely, Audrey. Audrey, congrats on a 30-year anniversary. That's hard work. You can't, it's very difficult to stay married for 30 years accidentally, right? And so, my wife and I are coming up on our 25th wedding anniversary, and I can tell you it's a lot of give and take on both sides. Probably more so on hers than mine. But the reality is we had to work really hard at that. It wasn't perfect, and it's never been perfect, but it's been important. And we've always found a way to just go, okay, how do we restructure? How do we move on, or how do we make changes so that we can comfortably, happily live ever after? Which is, I think, what I heard in your email is that you're happily living ever after as things continue to change around you. We're coming up with a similar scenario. Our daughter's getting ready to move out to college, and I know that's going to be a drastic change for us, just like it was for you with your daughter and your son. And so as I ramble here, what I tell you is that so much of life changes is something that we're all going to have to navigate through, which is why as we work this journey, not quitting, not giving up is the most powerful thing we could do. We're constantly going to have to reassess and readjust as we go through different stages of life. And so we think of the stages of life being kind of the obvious ones is birth of a child and getting married and children moving out and going to college. And there are certain incremental things in life that are game changers in your life. And if you look at those, many of them come with some incremental weight gain because what happens is as you are trying to readjust to this new lifestyle, something has to give. And sometimes that's a little stress creeps in or uncertainty creeps in. And so many of us revert back to that comfort of food. When you said you have to manage this for the rest of your life, it's not just during those big moments in life. It's in all aspects of our life. We have to say, okay, how do I manage this for the rest of my life? And so it's something we're all going to have to do with, and we all going to have to deal with. And we say, okay, how do I manage this? And so we can't just set a game plan in motion and say, that's the plan. I'm going to follow it, and I'm going to follow it for the rest of my life. One of my not favorite things that I hear all the time is people say, don't do anything now you're not willing to do to lose the weight that you're not willing to do for the rest of your life. Well, that's great, and I understand the concept behind that, but you think about it for a second, is your life may change, and the things that you're doing to lose weight, you may not ever be able to do again. So saying that, if I'm going to use this as part of my journey, and saying that's the only way I'm going to do it, and I'm going to have that forever, if that's taken away from you, how do you readjust? And how you readjust is exactly how you described it here, where you said, I'm always going to have to manage this. And I think that's the piece that I really want to stress. For all of us, as you go through this process, no matter, even if you're a project manager unrelated to this, is as things change and you get more data, you make adjustments to your plan. So if you're working the same plan, think about WW as an example, right? The very first iteration of WW looks nothing like the version of today, because they've evolved as the world has evolved. And so you have to do the same thing internally. And so if you're used to eating, this for breakfast, this for lunch, this for dinner, and that's how you lost weight, and all of a sudden one of those things changes or something changes where that's no longer available, you have to then continue to readjust and make the changes that you want it. And that comes with you saying, I'm going to manage this for the rest of my life. 4 pounds over your goal. I'm very happy with you at that point. I get that in our own brains, we analyze that over and over and over again. But what I can tell you about that is that you're conscious. You know what's going on. You know what you need to do. You have all the tools to do it. And so now it's a matter of reprioritizing, going, okay, now that my daughter has moved out, now that my son is coming back, or whatever the scenarios are, it's like, how do I now reinvent myself? How do I now, what changes do I need to tweak? Maybe it's small changes. What can I do now to manage this thing to get to exactly where I want to be? I love how you kind of gave yourself credit for getting yourself healthy. I say this all the time. It's the greatest gift we can give ourselves is the gift of health. You have done that. And so that alone should power you through any decision that you need to make. You say, you know what? I've given myself the gift of health. I have an incredible husband, an incredible marriage, an incredible family. I want to preserve that forever, as long as I can do. And you can do that by taking care of yourself first, taking care of the others along the way. So Audrey, thanks for writing in. Keep up the amazing work. Keep doing what you're doing. You will always manage this. You're an amazing manager. You're going to do just fine at managing it. So I always want to know what it is, the folks, that you guys are celebrating. It's fun to celebrate with you. I promise you that's the best part of this is hearing your successes. So write in. Let me know what is it that you're celebrating. If you're thinking right now, hey, I'm not celebrating anything, I want to hear that side of it too. Certainly it's not nearly as fun, but I want to help you get unstuck. I want to help you get to the point where you finally see the light and you see the big picture and you go, yeah, the fact that I'm still listening, the fact that I'm tuned in, those are big deals. And I'm celebrating that because I'm here, because I'm doing it. But go ahead and let's share it on the air. Email in at onair@fatdag.com. Send in your celebrations, your comments, your questions. I'll work them in as part of the show. That's what makes this entire show work, is you sharing from the heart, and we share it together. Email in those celebrations. I want you to be proud of what you're doing, because what you're doing works. Well, that's going to do it for this time. Remember that losing weight and getting healthy has nothing to do with luck. You have to remain disciplined and focused. Set your sights on your goal and go after it. On behalf of my producers, Heather and Lisa, we wish you good focus.